Welcome to episode 5 of Randall Vision. I am your host, Randall, and today's episode is about liberty. This is going to show a little more of my American side. I feel like the first topic of honesty is somewhat of a universal ethic that everyone can get behind that no matter what culture you come from. I think it's a generally agreed upon moral stance is that you should be honest. Liberty, I feel like it's a little more American in nature. That's one of the principles that the country was founded upon, and people often like to invoke it for trying to defend whatever the actions may be. They may be rightfully defending it or not. But what do we mean by liberty? Liberty is an individual's freedom to behave in any way such that that behavior does not infringe upon another individual's or bring harm to another individual's person or body. It will not cause harm to another individual's property, and it will not infringe upon another individual's ability to behave in their pursuit of freedom. So if you abide those three qualities or prongs to the ideal, then there shouldn't be any real conflict of interest. Now, there's a ton of nuance on the topic, and that nuance was covered in the book essay on liberty by John Stuart Mills. And I was flipping around through my copy of On Liberty yesterday, and there's certain aspects of it that I find intriguing or amusing. One, the introduction, this is a new meme, or a newish meme that I've been seeing around, where tell me blank without telling me blank. And if you read the introduction of On Liberty, you would say, now John, tell me that your wife wrote this without telling me that your wife wrote this. And it's a rumor, or so I forget where I had heard the idea that the essay was in fact written by his wife, and it needed to be published under John's name because in 1859 no one would take a book written by a woman seriously. So in order to give it the gravity that it rightfully deserves, it needed to be published under his name. So with that aside, yeah, go ahead and read it yourself. It's kind of it's something else. So why is liberty important? What are we here to discuss? One thing is misconceptions about liberty. People often conflate liberty with freedom, and they're not the same concept. For example, in America, you have the freedom to murder someone, but murder is illegal because it violates liberty. It would bring harm to another person's body, so thus we agree collectively that that act is prohibited and bound by liberty. Another example would be drinking and driving, that we do have the freedom to drink and drive or be intoxicated while driving, and collectively we agree that that is not permitted because the likelihood of you causing harm to another individual's person or property is drastically increased by that type of dangerous behavior. So that's off the table. Um, in there's we're gonna wrap it up there. Um, it's pretty self-evident. Like, you could just extrapolate so much from something so simple. If people want to behave differently than you, and they're not harming anyone, and they're not harming anybody's um, property, and they're not infringing upon anybody's ability to be free, leave them alone. You don't need to impose your arbitrary standards upon others, because you could just ignore them. It's not hurting anyone or anything for people to express themselves in ways that they see fit. And I may have already said this, but it's worth repeating. There's a ton of nuance surrounding the concept of liberty, and it's covered, and there's a whole book about it. And if you need to know the ins and outs, or an explanation as to why particular behavior would be considered in bounds or out of bounds, also, there's a gray area, believe it or not. Like, it's such a highly nuanced concept that it took well over 100 pages for Mills to put it out there. So this is not an educational channel. I'm not trying to spoon feed you every last detail of, well, this is how it needs to be interpreted or whatever. No, it's just one of the, like, liberty and honesty are the foundations of how I conduct myself in the world. Everything else is out of bounds. Like, being deceitful is out of bounds, and harming other people, harming other people's property, and harming other people's freedom is out of bounds. So, I mean, that's it, folks. You're a sovereign individual. Do what thou wilt.